G'day Bomber fans, practice match tomorrow, I cannot wait. We go up against the Saints, first game of the year, which of course means first preview of the year. Now yes, it's not competitive footy, it's a glorified training drill, but this game will tell us a lot about our team as we head into round one. So let's get into it with a cheeky little pracky match preview. Alright, let's start by going over the details of this game for you who are unaware. It's this Friday the 23rd, tomorrow. It is at 2 PM Australian Eastern Time, so Victoria, New South Wales, Tassie. I don't know why I'm explaining time zones to you. You probably know more about that stuff than I do. Nothing confuses me more than working out what time it is in other states. It's my kryptonite. So Friday afternoon at RSEA Park, that is St Kilda's training ground. We played them last year there. It was a pretty crappy day last year, really windy, and it looks to be the same again. This time around, unfortunately, big wind is forecast again. So nothing we are unfamiliar with, though, I guess. Can't be worse than the hangar. The game is set to be close to AFL time, 4 quarters of 25 minutes, no time on. The clock doesn't stop as well. Other teams are doing 6 quarters with larger squads, or even 8 quarters. We are keeping it short and sharp, meaning the squad selected will also be short and sharp. You can buy tickets free if you're a member of either club, I think. I don't know how many are still available, though. And if you're elsewhere like me, you can watch the game live on KO. Every practice game is going to be streamed there. I think it will also be the first time that we see our new Clash Guernsey, I would say. We never really wear the home shirt against the Saints, and they don't wear the home shirt against us. And because we're away, I'm going to assume that we're wearing our red one. So we should rock up in that predominantly red singlet so we can see what it looks like in action. Alrighty, now the squads. They're probably going to be a bit shorter than some other games this week. So Richmond and Melbourne, for example, who had a longer practice match over the weekend, they had around the low 30s each in terms of players. That seems to be the standard for matches like this. Sometimes you're going to get teams roll out entire squads and play a few quarters with fringe players, but we're only playing 4 quarters, so I don't think that is on the cards tomorrow. I reckon we will only really see about 30, 32 players named at most, maybe less. Hard to really say. There isn't a set number that it needs to be at. And now I'm really keen for the squad selection, more so than the actual game itself, actually, because it's going to tell us a lot about the pecking order in certain positions, but there are also quite a few players that will be missing out because of injury. I posted a video yesterday, the guys that will be missing out, but just to recap, our injured guys, we've got Hunter, Baldwin, Wanganeen, Shield, Draper, Hobbs, and Kelly, but also a few rested guys like Caddy and Wright, and also Jordan Ridley. So some big names missing, but that isn't a bad thing. They aren't all injured even. Some are just going to be rested to avoid risk. It will give some younger guys a chance, which could be good. There comes the question, who replaces Ridley, who replaces Hobbs and Shield and Draper and everybody I named, really. But even with all those guys out, there is still a big squeeze for spots. There are going to be some huge omissions. The small forwards, who gets in there? Guelphy, Hind, the Davey twins, Gresham, and then you got guys like Heppel and Wiedemann and Bryan and Cox even. There are a lot of guys who could easily face a cheeky omission before round 1. So I think this 30-odd man squad will tell us heaps about the team's lineup early in the season, who we have in our first team mind. It was this time last year that we started to realise that Davey was going to be right in the mix for an early debut. Could we find a Roberts or someone this time around? We'll find out tomorrow. And now really quick, the Saints also have a few guys out. Sinclair, Butler, Dow, Jones, Hunter, Clark. So both teams have important guys missing. I'll react to the squads tonight if I have time. I've been pretty busy lately, unfortunately. Alrighty, so what should we expect from this game of footy? Realistically, not a lot. These matches are, as I've said a few times this week, glorified training drills. There isn't really a lot to take from these games a lot of the time, to be honest, from a results view at least. I remember Port being absolutely thumped by Freo this time last year, and look how that turned out. One team got a double chance and the other was in the bottom 4 scrap. The Pies just lost to North Melbourne, who finished 16 spots below them on the ladder. I remember we played St Kilda last year, actually, I think in the official game though, so it would be next week's clash. But they thumped us, even though we weren't too far apart just a few weeks later in round 2 or 3. And now usually these games are free-flowing, defence-free, scrappy and clanger-ridden, clanger-heavy. But the Saints kind of made it a slog last time. They made it really hard for us to score. I don't have the scores in front of me, but I don't think we even made the 40 mark, and they didn't get past the 80 mark, I don't think. So 99% of these games end in goal fests, but that one didn't. You can often expect triple figures for both clubs. It gets pretty wild sometimes. Team defenses just fall asleep. So don't expect either backline to hold up, and don't take too much from the result. When watching, you should be noting periods rather than the game as a whole. We should also expect to see positional changes for the first time properly. Yes, we have seen Martin off halfback in training, but it's not the same against a proper team and not just the reserves. So we can expect to see Martin's trial of halfback officially start. We can expect to see Nick Hind up forward if he plays. But then there are some other question marks like Nick Cox and Sam Durham. Durham has played midfield minutes regularly throughout this preseason. Will that continue as he faces a proper lineup in St Kilda? There are some guys that we may see thrown around in certain roles for the first time. Will we see Kyle Langford thrown in defence for some red time match scenario? These are the questions that may be answered on Friday, because now is the time for Scott to just throw the magnets around, try whatever he wants to try. It's why these games can often be confusing, because we're trying new things. It's a practice match for a reason. Even if it's for a short amount of time, there are going to be some changes that we will see. It would just mean the club is thinking about these things for the future. So that's enough of what you can expect to see. Now it's time for me to talk about what I want to see happen, starting with our midfield. I want to see some synergy and a solidified engine room. Last year we started the year with a really concrete stoppage crew. That's what Scott liked in the past. He did that at North a lot. He didn't have many rotations. And we ended the year really flexible, but also really lean at times. So I'd like to know what the midfield is going to look like each week. We have such a deep engine room and the spots are hard to fill around the ground for guys like Caldwell and Sartas, who aren't as effective away from the square. So I want to see Scott address this and show us what our midfield setup will look like. It's a good time to test it around, show us what combination garner the goods. The Saints have a strongish midfield, not really elite. It's the same level as ours, I reckon. It is a good test for our mids to see whether or not they have that grunt to them, because the Saints are quite strong, as in muscly, big, strong, tackle, you know what I mean. Setterfield, Perkins, Sartas, that's where they all fit in, having similar roles, so we'll see how they go against the Saints. Our new recruits, it's important to see how they fit into the team and, more importantly, improve the team. These preseason games are often about individuals. That's what comes out of them. When it isn't about results, the attention shifts to the new guys and the guys playing well and who impresses. So I'd like to see signs that our money is well spent, whether it be Ben Mackay holding King down or Dersma using his two-way running to help out down back. Gresham against his old team, if he has an impact, that would be great. And no Draper, so there's a lot of resting on Goldstein's shoulders. Is he going to be able to maintain fitness at that age? We have a few new recruits to focus on, and we don't just want to see them get through the game. We want to know that they make our team better. It would be a waste of money to bring in Gresham, for example, and see him play similarly to someone like Snelling. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you get my point. Alright, so I want to see our team defense hold up in patches. You can't ask the team to maintain a solid structure for an entire pracky match, but even if it's periods of dominance, seeing Mackay and Reed and Co get on top of King and the others, that is enough for me. Seeing what could happen with our backline, and the same goes for our team defense, but it's kind of the opposite there. I don't want to see patches of dominance. I just don't want to see us get completely torn apart on the rebound. We were pretty easy to score against when the ball was flowing last year, so I want to see signs that we have made an effort to change that. I'll be watching very closely on Friday. We had the 4th worst defense in the league last season, so we definitely need to see signs of improvement, and that starts here. The last thing I want to see is one-on-one matchups won by our players. I think that's a good indication of where a team is at with these games. Looking at the individuals, I know footy is well and truly a team sport, but teams are so hard to judge in these meaningless matches. It's often more useful looking at how individuals are tracking, so we look at how Mackay manages King, how McGrath manages Butler or Higgins because Butler's not playing, how our forwards go against Wilkie, how we maintain Sinclair and Steele. So for me, I'll be looking at the one-on-ones closer than I usually would, because I think in these preseason games they mean a lot more as an indication of where a team is at than they would in regular season in a weird way. I was asked in a comment on a recent video what players or player I'm most looking forward to, so I figured I would name a few, 5 in fact. So the first is Ben Mackay for obvious reasons. I'm keen to see how he goes with a better backline than he had at North. I want to see how he frees up his teammates. We haven't really had the luxury of a big 2-meter defender before, and we might have 2 this year with Reed potentially back, but Mackay is the first. Next up, Durham. He has had a crazy good preseason. I want to see how he goes with more midfield time. Nick Hind, I hope he plays. I think he could be really fun for us. A real chaos player that could take the load off Stringer and Gresham. Perkins, 4th year, I think he could have a big one. We need a breakout year from Perkins, so I'm keen to see if he takes it to another level. And finally, a weird one about Harrison Jones. There's no Nate Caddy, no Peter Wright. I want to see how Harrison Jones goes on his own. He might play with Wiedemann or someone. But I think it's an important year for Jones, and it would start here. It would be great if he could kick a few goals and get his confidence up and find some consistency. No prediction for a game like this. I really don't look at the results as having any meaning whatsoever. Can't stress that enough. I may as well predict. I'm going to say Essendon by 69 points. How about that? Nice. That is my prediction. If you're into betting, go crazy. Put the house on it. It's bound to happen. Responsibly, of course. Put the house on it responsibly. But that's that. A bit of a different preview. Hopefully, it's a good, entertaining hit out tomorrow. I'm hoping we get some positives to talk about on Saturday, or hopefully post a video by then. If not, then we'll say Monday. I've been pretty busy. I would love to continue 2024 in the way that it's been going early, but that's all. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.